Response to a video by Professor Anton where you're talking about gifts and impositions there, Corey. I don't think I'm coming from quite the same basis as you. I know a little bit about Becker, but I don't know Simmel at all, and I think that might be informing what you're talking about. Maybe not, who knows. Anyhow, yeah, what I'm thinking of here is to do with, because you used the word imposition and gift in that, and I think, for me at least, these things are often taken to be opposites. And some of the comments seem to be suggesting that we're contrasting a kind of positive benefit given to someone or something as opposed to a negative. I don't know the opposite of benefit is. Anyway, and a negative in some way. And these things are both imposed upon that person in the sense that they're both granted to that person without consent. One of which, as I say, is positive, and we might think of that as a gift. And one of those is negative, and might think of it as a curse, or something like it, an imposition in some way. I mean, just putting aside for one moment the idea that, well, the obvious fact really, that that life can't be imposed in a literal sense, because you can only impose upon something, can't you? And if there's nothing to precede it, then you can't clearly not impose it. But I'm happy to skate over that really, because it is a kind of metaphor, isn't it? So that's kind of fine. But what you're saying there, I think, is that this idea of gift is not simply the opposite, is not simply a positive imposition as opposed to a negative imposition, but it features differently. And I think that's, from my perspective, that's where I'm coming at it too, although, as I say, we might be very different on our particular takes on that. Because it seems to me that because you use the word deserve, and I think that's a really useful word, because desert, whether one deserves something or not, is really coming out, it seems to me at least, it's coming out of a market economy logic. If you deserve something, it's because you have done something for which there should be a payment of some kind, whether that be in the form of an actual positive payment for something good that you've done, or whether it be a kind of negative payment in the form of a punishment for something bad that you've done. There's a desert, there's a balance there, there's as I say, a market economy at work, or at the very least a barter economy. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. It's what's the biblical quote about an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? So it's this kind of there's an economy at work there, and all these terms to do with imposition and a particular understanding of the word gift, not I think the way that you're using it, but another understanding of the word gift as positive imposition or curse, are part of that same market logic, or as I say, barter logic, that is one about, as I say, fair exchange, and all of the kind of trappings of that to do with consent, to do with granting taking something from someone and not giving anything back. All the kind of logic of the marketplace are at work in both the word imposition and in a certain understanding of the word gift. But I think there's another way of understanding it, which is a gift in terms of gift economies. I'm having a quick look at this at the moment because some of my students are researching gift economies for some stuff they're doing. So they're a really great bunch of students, actually. They did a project, they've just finished a project where they lived entirely without cash for the whole month of November, and lived entirely in a kind of barter system. So they're theatre students, so they made a performance and kind of sold the performance, but not for cash. If you wanted to see their show, you brought a tin of beans or some firewood. They were living in a tent for the month of November. It was great. But they're also moving on to look at gift economies and how they're practiced as theatre makers might operate within a gift economy. So I'm looking at that through their eyes, really, which is a great privilege. And gift economies aren't like market economies or barter economies, are they? They don't have that thing about, there's reciprocation at work, but they're reciprocation networks. There's not that simple kind of linear exchange of you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. You give me something and I will give you something in return. If you give me something and I haven't asked for it, then you're imposing upon me. And if I take something from you, then I've deprived you of something and I owe you something. That kind of logic doesn't work in gift economies. It's not like that. It's a much more subtle and porous set of relationships that hold those gift economy communities together. And within that framework, it's just very, very different, I think, to talk. You can't talk about things like imposing And there's no kind of, or a much lesser extent, can you talk about words like imposing or deserve or yeah, any of those terms that we've used really. But one of the things that I think is interesting about this is there's a lot of stuff that I'm finding interesting. But one of the things I'm thinking about right now is what kinds of different people emerge in these different economies. And I know I know for some folk that's a hard idea to get your head around. It is for me sometimes, that's for sure. Which is this idea that we could be different the way we are, because we feel like we're a given, don't we? You know, we feel like the way we act and think and operate in the world is kind of a priori obvious. You know, it just feels obvious. We feel kind of transparent. We can't imagine ourselves being in any other way. But we also know that a lot of ourselves are constructed, and particularly the parts that feel most obvious, the things that the truth which we hold most self-evident about ourselves and our operations are often the things which are most constructed out of social operations, including economies. And so I'm just thinking about what kind of a self would emerge in these different economies. I mean, we know from Marx, and you know, whatever we think about Marx, he had some interesting things to say about what kinds of people emerge in certain kinds of economies. You know, he's talking about the emergence of a certain kind of consciousness in market capital economies, and how you know, by those processes of workers being alienated from the products of their labour, by the commodification of labour, by the commodification of the worker themselves. You know, so your time becomes valuable. You know, you can sell your time on this planet, which is kind of an odd idea. You can sell your labour. That whole idea commodifies the worker, commodifies all of us, the subjects, into particular understandings of ourselves. So we start to gain a market value. You know, in fact we talk about it in these terms. You know, we talk about our value in the marketplace, and how much we can sell ourselves for, sell our labour for, and so our very most intimate and most obvious and most apparently natural selves are deeply constructed, it seems to me, within an economy which casts us as entities of which have exchange value, entities which might buy and sell parts themselves, or which might, you know, have parts themselves, might have things gifted to them, or have things cursed upon them, in that kind of sense. And it is absolutely part of that market force, or the barter force. We would feel deprived, or we would feel blessed because of, as I say, because of that understanding of oneself as an alienated subject. But gift economies, I think, produce different kinds of subjects. If you're in a gift economy, which is, as I say, a very particular kind of social formation, different to any of the ones that we're familiar with, firsthand at least, a different kind of subject emerging, which is not alienated in quite that same way. The boundaries between oneself and others are much more porous. And I don't mean that in any kind of spiritual sense, or at least any kind of religious sense. I mean it in an understanding of what a person is. You know, in a gift economy, it doesn't work to say to view oneself as a kind of objectified, alienated, consumable product ready to be exchanged in the marketplace for goods and services. It doesn't work to do that. You know, you'd fail in a gift economy if you had that kind of mindset. You have to think of oneself as caught up in a web of relationships, don't you, and exchanges and gifting. You know, gifting in that economic sense, not the gifting that takes place in market economies. A gift in a market economy, the gifts that we exchange at Christmas, are understood as either slightly alternative to the rule of fair exchange, or actually part of a fair exchange. I give you a gift and you give me one in return. That's which isn't really a gift at all, is it? It's an exchange. But a true gift in the gift economy isn't like that. It is truly a giving. And the kind of, as I say, the kind of subjects which emerge in gift economies, at least in theory, are those kinds of gifts. I mean, we don't really, as it's, you know, we live in a market economy, increasingly so, it seems to me, and increasingly fragmented and more individualistic and more closely more tightly demographically targeted market economy, in which we are more and more defined as certain kinds of consumer and certain kinds of product. Here on YouTube is a classic example of that. We are, you just need to look at the new layout to see how we are being commodified. Which, you know, may be fine, I don't know, it's just an observation. But that's quite different to beings and gifts. Oh yeah, but there are some examples of gift economies are around, aren't there? I mean, things like Wikipedia has been cited as an example of gift economy. People contribute to Wikipedia not because they want to get something back, but for kind of personal reasons, because of a commitment to the commons and a desire to be part of the commons. Scientific publishing is often, or academic publishing more generally, is often considered to be part of that kind of gift, because obviously none of us get paid for publishing in academic journals. You might get a little bit of esteem from your peers, but quite often not even that. You know, it's just it's part of a gift economy with the recognition that the commons is important, and we all have an extension of ourselves into the commons, and things like open source software as well, of course. So yeah, that's about it. Anyway, thanks for that, Corey. I think I'm probably coming from quite a different place to you are in terms of the ideas, but yeah, but I mean the important thing for me is that gift is not the opposite of a negative imposition, is it? It's not. That's not how it works. It's not a positive as opposed to impositions negative. It's part of a different economy, and the whole idea of imposition, negative imposition, curses, is part of a very specific economy, which is informing a very particular kind of subjecthood, I think. Thanks very much.